Court is in session. Did you know 3 lies are told by adults every 10 minutes? Time to suss out them liars.
Court is in session. Welcome back to Judge Glenda. It is time to take a look at craziness. It's the Epstein files. And yes, there have been lots of videos on this. People looking at who's in them, people who's not in them, people looking at the photos that they have of the house, the videos they found. We're going to do something a little different. This is not a new thing. This is an old thing that I am bringing back up because now with this revelation, it's weirder. So yeah. But to start you guys off great and fresh, I know you're gonna love this. I am going to uh very lovingly show you a video. Uh this is also this is actually a pretty newer video. Um and it had a lot of blowback when it came out for just reason. So let's take a look at it and we'll go from there. But this is to introduce today.
It's okay, it's okay. I'm Celine Dion.
Our children, they are not really our children, as we are all just links in a never-ending chain that is life. For us, they are everything. But in reality, we are only a fraction of their universe. I can't believe they called security. I'm not spending the night in jail. Holy shit.
Easy. Celine Dion. Yeah, girl, and I'm Beyonce. I'm calling my agent.
Moon hangs around the blade of my hair, reminds me what to do before I.
Yeah. So does anybody remember when that came out? Super, super, super creepy video. Um, and as a mother, I just would like to say a few things on the record. Um, my kids are absolutely not your kids. They're my kids. Um, they're not pawns in your game. They never will be. They play their own game. And I hope that one of my kids, who are actually all adults, barely, I hope one of them takes you people down. Because what I've realized is that the people that are supposed to protect us, people that run our government, that run our country, that run the world, don't care about any of us. They're evil. Like this is not a left or right problem. This is definitely a good versus evil problem. And I definitely think it's an actual, if you want me to be very honest, this is a God versus the devil problem. Like, I think these people are straight up worshiping Satan. I know that that's a conspiracy theory and that there's lots of people like to make fun of it, but I would like to remind you of something. In 2020, a lot of conspiracy theories coincidentally turned out to be true. And if you don't believe me right now, go do the research for yourself. Don't have me tell you which ones are true. I want you to pull up some of the biggest conspiracy theories and see if they're not true. It'll make you change your whole outlook on life. Anyway, so the reason that I did this is because did you see that there was a whole big thing about New World Order? These babies are the universes. That's kind of what I'm about to get into. So, in the Epstein files, there were some interesting things. Before we start, this is just fair warning. This is not going to be light stuff. And there's my copyright. So don't try to get my video taken down. This is not for children. So the first thing I wanted to take a look at is this email, and this is just a weird email. This particular email is about a painting that Jeffrey Epstein had turned into a large canvas. So it says, "Hi, Rich. Jeffrey is asking if you can FedEx the painting he had made of the massacre of the innocents to the ranch." And that's Zorro Ranch. It's the large 9x9 canvas that we had rolled out for him to see in the entryway where they're killing babies. He wants to use it on the ranch and is hoping you can FedEx it so it arrives by Wednesday. So he's got a piece of art that literally depicts children being murdered, and he'd like to hang that up in his house. Like, why? To mention all the weird art that was found in his house of lots of children and naked women. It was weird, but that was just a weird thing. Now, I do want to tell you something else interesting that I read going through his files. So right around the time of 2014, so this is after his initial arrest for child trafficking, which got pled down to prostitution, if you didn't know that. He was arrested in like 2008 for this. They pled him down to prostitution. He got 13 months, but out of those 13 months, he got work release. So he was allowed to leave every day and go to the office, which as a financial advisor was his house in New York. And he got to stay there all day till whenever he was done work. And he just had to come back to sleep in jail. That's what he did for 13 months. Of course, that wasn't going to stop him. And then that leads to, that led you to really start thinking, how important was this dude that they were able to make a sentence like that just happen? Just a thought, just a thought. So you're probably now reading at the top here, the designer babies thing. So that's where this is going. But anyway, 2014, there are a lot of emails talking about how badly Jeffrey Epstein within the next 4 or 5 years, which would have been 2018-19 when he was getting caught for the second time. By that time, he really wanted to be settled down with children, living by the beach, enjoying them. So the question I asked myself was this man like totally bred to be a monster? Or was there a part of him that really just wanted normalcy? And the Christian in me really, really wants to hope that he was a lost person that deep down had some good in him somewhere. I hope. Now, I know to a survivor, it kind of seems like I'm spitting in your face, and I'm absolutely not. I think what he did to you is absolutely horrific. Um, and I wish he would have been able to serve time for that. Like real time. But it just makes me wonder. I mean, the other side is that is he wanted kids so that he could abuse them. And we know that there are people that have kids just to do that because they're sick people. That's what I mean by the evil part. But part of me just wonders sometimes. There were a lot of crazy allegations in the emails about eating babies, and I'm not really going to go into those because they are alleged. There is no verification for them, so there's no point in speculating and spinning wild stories. But this stuff can be proven. So, in the emails, looks like Mr. Epstein got up with some financiers and decided, hey, let's make some designer babies. So one of the emails is, here's a look. Oh, here's a doc I shared about my designer baby project. Uh, it talks about how he's talked to people um, about this, just trying to see um, how it would work. Um, a lot of the issues that they had were secrecy and wanting to make sure that people's anonymity could be held um, because they didn't want to have an issue with, obviously with people uh, being known if they were investing in this particular idea. Um, Next email just talks about how um, they'd like to get together to actually talk about this and set up an official meeting for it, which is gross. Um, the next set of emails is so we have the meeting invite that he sent over to his assistant and Brian Bishop. And Brian Bishop, after looking him up, there's a few famous Brian Bishops, but this one is a biogeneticist. He's a medical doctor. And then the other email is just simply says August 2nd, 2018, 4 p.m. Designer Babies, Brian Bishop. Agenda: designer babies, structuring, finance, privacy, project goals, feasible outcomes, and timeliness. Creepy. It's like just another day at work for them. They're talking about making designer babies, and it's just like, yeah, we create some designer babies. And I'm gonna go into the point of why this is weird later. Because it definitely is. So next slide. Sorry for skipping. Um, this is Brian Bishop and Jeffrey Epstein talking about um, being back in the country because he had to go to a meeting. And there was something I wanted to point out about this. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, I am back, met Simon Black in Lithuania. Let's schedule. But instead of schedule, it says schedule equal a call. I could discuss. There's something weird that Jeffrey Epstein does. He constantly puts uh equal signs throughout his wording. Could it be just typos? Yes, it could be. But he does it, it seems, way, way more than he should. And like, I'll give you an example. The schedule one where there should be an L, that's nowhere near the equal sign. Like these can't just be mistakes. So I think it is on purpose. And there's a reason I'm saying that. Because the next slide is it says they're still talking about, you know, that designer baby thing. They have a Google Doc they keep sharing. The spreadsheet talks about where the money is going to go, the investment money, how they're going to spend money, because there's a huge payment that gets pushed through. And it's funny because that payment is actually in an MIT medical article. It's kind of funny. But in this particular one, it says, I like implant embryos, comma, wait 9 months, comma, equal C2, and then a diamond. Great ending. Well, that equal C2 is what initially when I was reading these, I did not make a specific connection. But then as I kept reading through more and more and more of the emails, there is a modeling agency out of France It is managed by Jean-Luc Brunel. Um, there have been multiple people that have talked about him. If you're a Candace Owens fan, she has talked about him. But he owned MC2, which is a modeling agency. So, how coincidental is it that this talks about embryos, wait 9 months, and then we've got equal, which he likes to use for letters, C2. So, my thought process is designer babies are being created for multiple reasons, likely. One, to prop up a modeling industry, because you can put babies right into modeling as infants. We've seen it multiple times. That's why I put in that Celine Dion clip. You've got babies literally being models as newborns in that clip. Those babies are young. They're not newborns, but they're probably only a couple months old. So you got babies that are being thrown into this right away, and this is a perfect avenue. Let's create designer babies that have the perfect hair color, eye color, bone structure, um, genetic profile, so that they're going to be the most gorgeous children alive. And we're going to fast track them right through the modeling industry to make us tons of money because we're going to get rich off of it. Not only that, we all know that going through the modeling industry, just listening to some of these stories from models is detrimental on your health because of eating disorders. It's detrimental, can be on your skin, all the product that's put on it, the chemicals that are in makeup, um, just seeping into your pores constantly. Not to mention, especially as a child, I mean, there's rape of adult women in modeling, but could you imagine how much worse it is for the children? So that's kind of what I'm wondering. Was this a revenue stream for them? Number one, but also, especially for people that can afford it, to pay for designer babies. Because let's just be honest, kids in general are kind of thought of as accessories now. Look at all the rich people who don't want to actually have kids for themselves. They go adopt kids from other countries. And they say it's because, they're helping fight, poverty and uh, homelessness and kids in foster care from other countries. But too many times it's been proven that those kids from other countries are taken from families that are in poverty and don't really understand what they're doing. And then before they know it, their kid is some piece of arm candy for somebody rich. Not to mention all the evil things they could be doing to these kids. How many of these kids are being bred to be perfect a certain way just so that they can be used and abused? Or how many of them are, now this kind of slides into another variation. What about the ones, if you're already genetically modifying babies, okay? That means you're already in the business of creating children. Is it a far stretch to believe that somebody might want to then just create regular kids to put on the black market for, let's assume people do kill children for killing them. Let's assume people do eat people for eating them. Let's assume people just love to be with little children intimately for that. We already know that we have a huge pedophilia issue all over the world, but it's very bad in the US. We are not immune from this. Matter of fact, we are the highest producers of child porn. We are also the highest consumers of child porn. We are messed up country. Now, there was a time when I was very patriotic. I loved my country. I thought we were great. Our government has made me change my stance on that. I mean, I still love my country, but it's my government that I can't stand because they've let this happen for decades and decades, centuries, maybe. This might go back to our founding. Other evil things go back to our founding. Why not this too? I'm just saying. Patriots don't come at me. It's not that I don't love our country. It's just, lots of weird stuff. So then the next email So this was interesting. This one is talking about how China has been trying to do this exact same thing with kids, but they've been having some issues um, with the embryo editing. Um, but that this is Brian letting Jeffrey know that don't worry about it because we use a completely different process than they do. That's why ours works. So just gross, 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 gross stuff. So what I wanted to show you is, yeah, this would be one thing if it's just a bunch of rich people talking and it's not happening. But it is happening and it has been happening and it's been happening for much longer than you think. So there is a program um, that or a process that was developed and it's called CRISPR technology. Um, and essentially it is it's a gene editing process um, that allows you to go into specific sets of genetics. And if you've got an issue, like sickle cell anemia, you've got cancer, you've got a genetic abnormality. Sorry, I really do have a cold. Anything like that, you're able to go into the gene, you're able to edit out the bad gene and replace it. So it's kind of like what you would do with cloning, where you're putting in genes, kind of like Jurassic Park. Think of Jurassic Park, where they were missing certain genes, so they put in genes of, frogs. It's very, very, very similar to that. Where if they're missing genes, they add in cloned versions of genes. Okay, so and then look on the side, like, this is not something that is, like, far fringe, like, many, 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 medical journals and medical outlets have actually done, um, articles on this. So, um, the next thing I wanted to show you was coincidentally, so there is a CRISPR gene editing tracker, okay? And what this is it is supposed to let you know, um, country to country, what um countries, if any, are um refusing sorry are refusing to participate in CRISPR. And then they break it down actually. So you have agricultural, you have human and health, and then you have the genes. And then they have it also sussed out by crops and food and then animals. Okay. Here's the issue. The only button that works on this website, and this is very weird considering that this is a huge project. It's got billions and billions of dollars going into it. You would think that their website would work. You cannot click on anything else. It will only allow you to look at agriculture, crops, and food. That's it. Won't let you look at anything else. You cannot pull up humans. You cannot pull up the gene project. You can't even click on animals for agriculture. So all you know is that as far as crops and food go for agricultural, Mexico and Peru don't allow CRISPR. That's it. You can't see anything else. And I wonder if that's because they don't really want you to easily be able to identify which countries don't allow it and which countries do. Because I did look and it was almost impossible to find anything. You cannot get clear-cut answers displayed of which countries are against CRISPR technology and which are not. It's not there. So it's just more weirdness, frankly, to be honest. Um, then we've got okay, so let's look at this. So these are the types of things that they've been using CRISPR for. So if you have a blood disorder, they've been using it to help with that. If you have HIV, they can actually go in and get rid of that infection. Hello, that is a cure for HIV. Why is that not like super high profile news? So on another uh, thought process. Back in the early teens of 2000, I worked at public health for a little while. I worked there for a few years, and I was in the women's health, minority health, and health equity group. Okay. So, one of the things, if you're looking at women's health, would obviously be maternal fetal health. So, as it relates to that, I was invited to do a training, and it was on HIV in infants. So, moms who had HIV who had then passed HIV to their baby during labor, because there's very, very, very specific things that you need to do to ensure that the baby, when they come out, that they don't get exposed to HIV. I.e., they get a whole bunch of blood in their nose, eyes, mouth, uh, of the mom when they're coming out. So anyway, but one of the things that struck me was, and this was like 2013, there was a baby that was born with HIV. They put that baby on uh, antivirals for the first 6 months of their life. Okay. The parents then decided, look, we're just going to stop and we're going to let whatever happens happen. But they redid that baby's blood work at like 9 months or so. That baby had no sign of HIV. So anybody that is living with HIV, I'm telling you right now, your government is 100% fucking with you, because there is a cure for it. But it is much more lucrative for you to be a patient. Much more lucrative. So you'll never get a cure. Some people do, not everybody. Anyway, that was a tangent. So they can use it to help reprogram immune cells for cancer. Hello? Genetic disorders. So stuff like Down syndrome, spina bifida, stuff like that. And then, of course, they could do agriculture as well. So any animal that ends up having something, they could always fix that too. So just interesting. Now let's look at how long CRISPR has actually been around, because this actually might shock you, because this is not new. CRISPR's been around since 1993. That's when they first identified that there was a unique repeat sequence in the genome of bacteria, that they could essentially find a way to go in and cut out that replication series and put in a different one, which would get rid of the bacteria. So then in 2000, after 7 years of work, they figure out that that CRISPR technology has very common features, and that's where coining the term CRISPR came from. So in 2005, they finally do a link in viral defense. So they figure out that you can use gene editing as an adaptive immune response. Then in 2007, they're able to figure out that a particular type of cell is able to develop resistance against viruses using the CRISPR technology. 2012, this is when the modern thinking of CRISPR now comes in. The other stuff is kind of still microbiology and finding out that bacteria and viruses are coded a certain way, and that if you could break the code, that you could probably get rid of the bacteria, the virus. But then you get to the turn around the 12s, 13s, where you start realizing that you can essentially program the genomes in DNA by taking out certain ones, essentially cutting them out, and then replacing. Think Jurassic Park. 2013, they figure out that another type of cell is able to be edited. 2015 is finally when the ethical debates start. So it took them 22 years to start realizing that should we be playing with people's genetics? Should we? Not not can we know we can now. We can cut people's bad genetics out and replace them with good. But the question is, should we be doing that? Should people be left the way God made them? Should we essentially be playing God? Took them that long to realize that. And then 2020, Nobel Prize is awarded for the development of what is commonly known as CRISPR now. So this is where this gets interesting. You've got a process where you are able to create essentially designer babies. Because originally it appears as though originally this was, let's help people. Let's get rid of all these diseases that have been plaguing us. Let's get rid of them. Let's make the world healthy. But then it turns to, like it always does, well, what else can we do? Well, we could create babies that are exactly what we want them to look like. We could do that. Um, and that's where you get this actual article about how Bitcoin ended up financing this huge genome project. So, and this is Brian Bishop right here, on the left here. So yeah, this is where you get all this, millions and millions of dollars getting kicked in for, these designer babies. Because yeah, once you fix problems, which they theoretically fix them, they haven't, because you still see tons of sick people walking around. So it's not like they're going to give this away for free. Um, but then it's a matter of, well, how can I make this super lucrative? Well, to rich people that want perfect babies, we can gene edit anything. Hair color, eye color, height, stature, all that. Here's where my issue is. Just as you can do that, that means you could also gene edit the opposite way and cause entire populations to collapse. We've all seen the conspiracy theories about how elites really want to cut down the population by 90%. They want the, 10% to be left, okay? Well, what would be a really easy way to do that? Easiest way would be to, well, I mean, the easiest way would just be kill people. But aside from just murdering people, what's the other easiest way? The other easiest way is mess with the reproductive system. So put something out that makes almost every person infertile. Now, they've fertility rates have been plummeting in recent history. Um, but I actually think that's more associated to the magic virus that happened 6 years ago. Um, because anybody that got the JAB, uh, a lot of those women specifically have had some major issues. I think there have been a couple articles that have linked and shown the correlation between changes in menstrual cycle. There was a lot of women that lost babies who got that shot. But doing something like that could get your population down. It'll take a couple generations, but it'll happen. Um, but you could also, you know, you could essentially give people massive issues, health problems, because there's a set of vaccines every kid has to get just to start school. Let's say you're homeschooling, but you want them to get like the major ones, like your MMR, your polio, that you get like, the first few months you're alive. And if you don't do them, you know that CPS is going to be at your house trying to take your kid for medical neglect. Um, so how hard would it be for them to put something in those shots, and then you have a kid that's got a lot of issues? That's why a lot of people wondered why autism has spiked. Is there something, not necessarily that and I'm not saying necessarily that the vaccines cause that, but is there something else in the vaccines that is causing another side effect? Again, that's all speculative. This is just me throwing ideas in the air. Okay. I don't want you to not get your kid, immunized. Okay. It's dangerous. And if you're a Christian, this will give you some comfort. Nothing's going to happen to you that God hasn't already ordained anyway. So if your kid ends up being sick, it's for a reason. It's going to teach you, the kid, or somebody else something. You've just got to believe it. Okay. God is not the author of evil, but Satan is, but he also cannot interfere every single time Satan does something evil. If he did, then nobody would have free will. And that would completely, derail what he's doing right now with free will and humans. So just push that to the side. Um, I just find this to be a really dangerous route to be going down. Gene editing. Because right now it's for good, but when does good turn to bad? And when does good turn into for the betterment of humanity? Because do you really want these type of people? Because let's just be honest, there's been lots of names in these files. Names that people on the left were hoping weren't in there, names of people that were on the right that, we were hoping weren't in there, and they are. So you have to come to a realization that most of the people that you entrust your life with or to that are high up are evil. Now, do I believe that the people at the very bottom, state senators, mayors, a majority of them, do I think they're evil? No, I think they're probably trying to do the best. But I think the minute you get into a certain echelon of government, they immediately trap you, find some dirt on you, and then you are screwed. You will do what they say when they say it. If you want to keep that nice, cushy job, you will do what they tell you to do. And we've seen people that have fought against that and then were outed at their next election because you only get to play the game if you're willing to play the game by the game maker's rules. You think all these rich people that the rich or the wealth stays in their family for centuries? You think that makes any sense? Especially looking at some of these people's ventures. Many of them fail. There is a reason these people stay rich. There's a reason it's the same people that stay rich. Very few new people, new families run into the kind of money that we're talking about right now. And if they are running into it, they ran into it for a reason. They did something. And if they haven't done it yet, they will. I think all of the information around the P. Diddy stuff and Epstein, I don't think we're ever going to find out fully everything because I think there are too many still alive or currently sitting government people on that list. If we're the highest producers and consumers of child porn, that means your next door neighbor is watching child porn. One of them, maybe a couple. But it's disgusting because it's literally everywhere. Never understood it. Never, ever, ever understood it. And it makes me want to cry because we're talking about children. And I was a child that was abused. So I know the damage, the toll that it takes on somebody. And to think about those kids is today's was heavy. This was a heavy video. Um I promise I'll make the next one more lighthearted. I really do, I promise. But this was just something important. It was something that needed to be talked about, and it's something that people really need to start thinking about. Why is what we currently know as modern day CRISPR all over Epstein? Why was he involved in it? Why was a financier involved in this? Um, just something to look at. It's weird, it's creepy, and knowing now what we know about so much, going back and looking, CRISPR set aside from Epstein was already concerning, but now when you see it has a link to him, it's really concerning to me. I really don't think that we're ever going to come back as a country. I think we've already passed that threshold. And I think that the only way for us to go is down. This year is our 250th anniversary. A season is a quarter of the year. 250 years is a quarter of a millennium. I would not be surprised if God wipes us off the face of the earth because the US is gross. There's other countries that are just as gross. And pedophilia is not anything new. It goes all the way back to, the beginning of time. It really does. Rape does, pedophilia does, bestiality does, homosexuality does, transgenderism. As much as we don't like to admit it, it goes back to the very beginning too, as cross-dressing. All these things are perversions of God's perfect plan. All of them. Just like lying is, cheating, stealing. Living for yourself, nobody else. Being jealous of everybody else. All of those things are bad. They're all just as bad as each other. They are all branches of the exact same tree. And that tree is do as thou wilt. That's what that tree is. That tree is Satanism's motto. And if you live on that tree, you really need to get yourself grafted onto a better tree. Yeah, I'm sorry. This was heavy. This was not a reaction video that was going to be fun and happy and enlightening. But I have some great TikTok videos that I saved, and they're actually are going to be fun. And you'll get the extra me, not the serious me. So I hope to see you back. Well, tomorrow. See you later.